on secular, where did I find it? Here it is. www.secular.org, and you'll find a very large biography of Lori Lipman Brown. Lori, though, sent me a short intro bio, not wanting me to take up too much time, she said, so that she could have more time for talk and questions. And, of course, I intend to use most of this short bio. And I promise not to use any of the embarrassing stories you told me. I'll skip all those. Okay, and I'll just begin the way Lori began her short bio and what she wants to be known for. Lori Lipman Brown is an attorney. I should pause there. She's done a lot of wonderful work in the legal field and spent several years in the field of law working for battered women. That was probably one of her most troubling times. It prepared her for the Bill O'Reilly show. And since then, I think he's been a piece of cake. She wants to be known as an educator because she did teach in schools. She's taught drama. She's taught women's studies. I should tell you, she's also on the board of the Humanist Institute and is very involved in education. And that's where Linda and I know her very well. And she's a former Nevada state senator. And I should pause here because she says she is probably best remembered for repealing the Nevada law against adult consensual private sex between same-sex Nevadans in 1993. That was 10 years before the U.S. Supreme Court made such laws unenforceable. And I think she's very proud of that fact. Since September of this 2005, she's been the director of the Secular Coalition for America, serving as the first congressional lobbyist expressly representing non-theistic Americans, or as the front of this says, atheist, humanist, freethinkers, Americans. And I think that's who she represents. Her various awards include Civil Libertarian of the Year from the South Nevada chapter of the ACLU, Legislator of the Year from the Nevada chapter of the National Association of Social Workers, Friend of the Center Award from the Gay and Lesbian Community Center of Southern Nevada, and the Mark DeWolf Award from Interweave Continental. And I should say she lives in Washington, D.C. with her husband, Paul, and a mixed pit bull, Indy, who I have not met. I've met Paul, and I want to meet Indy after hearing about her. And I just want to say, Lori Lipman Brown is very dedicated to work she does. I also want you to know she has a great sense of humor, and I think we're going to have an enjoyable evening with her. Lori?
Thank you. And he didn't tell any of the embarrassing stuff. When I was hired to be the first paid staff for the Secular Coalition for America in 2005, the board of the organization and the 4 individuals who each put up $10,000 to hire me really didn't know how the first congressional lobbyist explicitly representing non-theistic Americans would be received in Congress, in the media, and among religious church-state separation groups. My first 2 days on the job, which was September 19th and September 20th, 2005, and the 2 years since, have made it clear that the Secular Coalition would be accepted and have an impact beyond the most optimistic predictions of the Secular Coalition's founders. On September 19th of 2005, I was invited to attend briefings regarding religious discrimination in Head Start and regarding vouchers. These invitations were from coalitions which included religious church-state supporters, church-state separation supporters, like the Baptist Joint Committee for Religious Liberty, the Interfaith Alliance, and the Reformed Judaism Action Council. The larger circle of groups also included church-state separationists who were neither religious nor non-religious, including Americans United for Separation of Church and State, People for the American Way, and the ACLU. And the voucher group that I worked with included a number of public education organizations. On day 2, I was included in these larger groups on approximately a dozen lobby visits, which is pretty amazing that on my second day on the job, I was in there lobbying with all of these really powerful groups. While I've now conducted hundreds of lobby visits, many of which I walk into on my own, My favorites are still the times I get to sit next to my colleagues in these larger alliances. It is admirable that the larger church-state separation community, as well as numerous civil rights organizations, recognized that non-theist does not equate with anti-religion, and that none hesitated to include what, according to recent surveys, is still the most hated minority group in the country: Americans who rely on non-supernatural life stances. That is, when it comes to societal hatred, non-theists, which is the umbrella term that the Secular Coalition uses to include our many identifiers, which individuals choose for themselves: humanists, atheists, naturalists, brights, agnostics, and dozens of other labels when society insists that one label oneself. That we are not trusted, according to these surveys, that we are disparaged and are assumed to be immoral and discriminated against in the voting booth and in other areas of American life. Another exciting event occurred on my first night on the job. On September 19, 2005, I appeared on Fox's Big Story. Although I had no idea what the host would ask me, his first question gave me the opportunity to dispel the lie that there are no atheists in foxholes, and also to give credit to patriotic Americans who serve in the military but don't share the majority's religious belief in any deity. But the second question had to do with the aftermath of the then recent tragedy of Hurricane Katrina. And this question gave me the opportunity to explain the ethics of a humanistic life stance on my first day on the job, well, my first night on the job, to millions of Americans. So if the AV person would go to clip number 2, and I don't know if I should have warned you that I was going to do that if it needs some setting up. But what I have is the clip of that Fox News Big Story. And number 2 will be up in a moment. And I was thinking I should have mentioned exactly when I was going to ask him to do that. So that always helps to have AV. Remember, this is my first day on the job. And the day before I started, while he was getting it up, the day before I started, I was at my niece's wedding in a big Catholic church with my in-laws, and they wanted to know about my new job.
The Secular Coalition for America, and she joins us now. Thanks a lot for coming in, Ms. Brown. I got to ask philosophy before politics. They say there are no atheists in a foxhole. If you were in an attic in New Orleans and the water was coming up to right below your chin, you think you'd be praying?
Well, first of all, let me correct. There are atheists in foxholes, and in fact, in October.
So I was much better at being on TV. Before you watch my first, and I've been on O'Reilly now 4 times. A lot of you said you had seen the more recent one about Mitt Romney, and that's the one, even though I didn't bring with me, that I'm most proud of, if only because they did my hair really nice. And nobody has ever been able to do my hair as nice as the Fox News people. But in the clip from my first O'Reilly appearance, which is clip number 3 on the computer, I have to tell you, they have their producer for the O'Reilly show. The producer actually pre-interviews you a few hours before the show, and you never know until the day of the show that you're going to be on, because they do things pretty timely, this also. So the producer was asking about, well, what kind of issues are you working on? And I said, well, I told him all about this religious discrimination and Head Start amendment. And so he knew all about the bill, and I'm sure over the next 5 hours they looked up the bill and they tried to find some way to spin it, and he talked to Bill about what I was going to talk about, and this is what happens.
This is 3?
Number, what did I say? I'm sorry, number 3.
3.
Something's off on the table tonight. The battle between traditional Americans and secular Americans continues. The Secular Coalition of America has recently opened a lobbying office in Washington, and joining us now from D.C. is the director of that office, Lori Lipman Brown. You're an atheist, right?
Yes.
Okay. Are all you people in your lobbying group atheists?
Sometimes they use different titles. Humanist. What we all have in common is that we don't believe in a deity.
Okay.
So,
well,
yeah, which most people would say encompasses atheism.
So the Secular Coalition, the the atheist coalition, but secular sounds better.